The galaxy was old. Very, very old. Billions of years had passed since the first stars were born. In that time, life had grown on thousands of worlds. Some of that life had become smart. Some had built cities. Some had built ships that could fly between the stars. And some had become so smart that they thought they could solve any problem in the universe. The Valkyrie were one such species. They came from a cold world near the center of the galaxy. Their bodies were tall and thin, with gray skin that looked like wet stone. They had no eyes like humans do. Instead, they had 16 long stalks growing from their heads. Each stalk could sense light, sound, heat, and things that humans did not even have words for. But it was not their strange bodies that made the Valkyrie famous. It was their minds. A single Valkyrie could do math problems in their head that would take a human computer years to solve. They could remember everything they had ever seen, heard, or felt. They could think about 100 different things at the same time without getting confused. For 10,000 years, the Valkyrie had been called the smartest beings in the galaxy. No one argued with this. It was simply true. Archon Velfrix was the smartest of them all. He stood now in the great calculation chamber of Nexus Prime, the most important place in all of known space. The chamber was huge, bigger than any building on Earth. Floating in the air around him were screens of light, each one showing numbers and symbols that would make no sense to most beings. Velfrix had been standing here for 6 days. He had not eaten. He had not slept. He had not moved from this spot. He was trying to solve the Cascade equation. The equation had first been discovered 300 years ago by a scientist from a species called the Orati. The Orati were an old race, older even than the Valkyrie. They had been studying the stars when most other species were still living in caves. The Orati scientist had been trying to find a way to send messages faster than light. This was the great dream of every civilization in the galaxy. Ships could travel faster than light using special engines, but messages could not. If you wanted to talk to someone on a planet 1,000 light years away, you had to wait 1,000 years for your message to arrive. This made running a galaxy very hard. The Orati scientist had found something amazing. Hidden in the basic math of the universe, there was a pattern. If someone could understand this pattern completely, they could send messages instantly. Not just fast, instantly, from one end of the galaxy to the other. In no time at all. But there was a problem. The pattern was locked inside an equation so complex that no one could solve it. The Orati scientist had spent his whole life trying. He died without finding the answer. Others had tried after him. The Crystalline Collective, a species made of living crystal, had connected 4 billion of their minds together to work on the problem. They worked for 50 years. They failed. The mind pools of Tessara, beings of pure thought who lived in great oceans of liquid metal, had meditated on the equation for a century. They failed. Every major species in the Galactic Council had tried. All of them had failed. And now, the Valkyrie had failed too. Velthrix looked at the equation floating before him. He had tried everything. He had used every method his people had developed over 10,000 years. He had invented new kinds of math just to attack this one problem. Nothing worked. His 16 sensory stalks drooped slowly, one by one. It was the Valkyrie way of showing sadness. Behind him, the great doors of the calculation chamber opened. Beings from 47 different species walked in. They were the representatives of the Galactic Council, the ruling body of known space. Velthrix did not turn around. He knew why they were here. They had come every day for the past week, hoping for good news. Today, he would give them bad news. Councilor Murtic walked to the front of the group. She was from a species that looked like the big cats of Earth, but she walked on 2 legs and wore flowing robes of red and gold. Her yellow eyes watched Velthrix with a look that was hard to read. Archon, she said. Her voice was soft but sharp, like a blade wrapped in silk. Do you have progress to report? Velthrix finally turned around. He looked at the gathered representatives. He saw hope in some of their faces, fear in others, doubt in many. I must tell you something, he said. His voice came through the translation machine that let all species understand each other. I must tell you something that I never thought I would say. The chamber became very quiet. I am the smartest mind in the galaxy, Velthrix continued. This was not pride. It was simply a fact. My people have been solving impossible problems for 10,000 years. We have never met a question we could not answer. He paused. His stalks drooped even lower. Until now. A sound moved through the crowd. It was the sound of 47 different species gasping, clicking, buzzing, and groaning in their own ways. The cascade equation cannot be solved, Velthrix said. I am formally declaring it theoretically impossible. The math of our universe does not allow for an answer. The dream of instant communication will remain a dream. I am sorry. Meredith closed her eyes. Other representatives began to argue among themselves. Some were angry. Some were sad. Some simply looked tired, thought 300 years of work. 300 years of hope. All of it was now gone. What do we do now? Asked a small being near the back. He was from a species that lived on water worlds. His voice bubbled like a stream. We move on, Murdoch said coldly. We accept that some things are beyond us. Velthrix nodded slowly. He began to close down the light screens around him. The numbers faded away one by one. That was when a young aide rushed into the chamber. She was a Velkari like Velthrix, but much younger. Her stalks were waving wildly, a sign of excitement. Archon, she called out. A ship has entered the Nexus system. We are close to visitors, Murdoch said. Send them away. I cannot, the egg said. They say they received our emergency beacon. They say they have come to help. Velthrix felt a small spark of interest. Which species sent this ship? The aide looked nervous. Her stalks twisted in confusion. They are called humans, she said. I have never heard of them. Murdoch made a sound of disgust. Humans? Those creatures only discovered space travel 15 years ago. They are barely more than animals. Still, Velthrix said, they answered our call. Protocol demands that we at least meet with them. Murdoch shook her head, but she did not argue. Protocol was protocol. Fine, she said. Bring them in. Let us see what these humans want. No one in the chamber thought much about this decision. Why would they? Humans were new to space. Humans were not important. Humans could not possibly have anything useful to offer. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The USS Meridian was not a big ship. Thought it was small and simple, built for a crew of only 3 people. The outside was painted white with blue stripes, and the words United Earth Space Corps were written on the side. Compared to the massive vessels of the older species, it looked like a toy. But to Captain Lila Morgan, it was home. Lila sat in the captain's chair, looking out the main window at the stars. She was 34 years old, with short, dark hair and brown eyes that always seemed to be watching everything at once. She had grown up on a farm in Montana, where her family raised horses and grew wheat. She had learned early that problems were meant to be solved, not talked about. That attitude had served her well in space. Captain, I really think we should turn back, said Danny Park from the navigation seat. He was 26, with black hair and worried eyes. Danny was a good navigator, the best in his class at the academy. But he was also careful, maybe too careful. You have said that 12 times now, Lila replied. Because it is still true, Danny said. We are not supposed to be in the core systems. We do not have clearance. The Galactic Council could arrest us. Layla smiled. They sent an emergency beacon. We answered. That is what good neighbors do. We are not their neighbors. We are barely even members of the galactic community. Most species do not even know humans exist. Then this will be a good chance to introduce ourselves. Danny opened his mouth to argue more, but he knew it was useless. When Lila made up her mind, nothing could change it. In the back of the small bridge, sitting on the floor with his back against the wall, Kevin Blake was not paying attention to any of this. Kevin was 23 years old. He had messy brown hair that he never seemed to comb, and he was wearing a wrinkled shirt that he had worn for the past 3 days. His eyes were fixed on a small tablet computer, and his fingers moved across the screen in quick patterns. 6 months ago, Kevin had been a math teacher at a community college in Ohio. He had been happy there, teaching basic algebra to students who did not care about math. He liked puzzles. He liked finding patterns in numbers. He did not like attention or excitement. Then the Space Corps had found him. They had been looking for people who thought differently. The older species in the galaxy all used the same methods to solve problems. They used logic. They used computers. They used systems that had been proven to work over thousands of years. Humans did not have thousands of years of space experience. They had to find their own way. Someone at the Space Corps had seen a paper that Kevin wrote about a new way to solve old math problems. The paper had been rejected by every major math journal because the methods were too strange. But the Space Corps recruiter had seen something special in it. Your brain does not work like other brains, the recruiter had told Kevin. We need people like you. Kevin had not wanted to go to space. He liked Earth. He liked his small apartment and his routine. But the recruiter had promised him one thing that Kevin could not refuse. There are puzzles out there that no one has ever solved, the recruiter said. Problems that have beaten the smartest minds in the galaxy. That had been enough. Now Kevin sat on the floor of the Meridian, completely lost in whatever was on his tablet. He had not said a word in 2 hours. Kevin, Lila called. We are about to arrive at Nexus Prime. You might want to see this. Kevin did not look up. I am busy. Kevin, it is the center of the galaxy. The most advanced place in known space. That is nice. Lila sighed and looked at Danny. Danny just shook his head. They had learned early in the mission that Kevin lived in his own world. You could not force him out of it. He would come out when he was ready. The Meridian dropped out of faster-than-light travel, and Nexus Prime appeared before them. It was the biggest thing Lila had ever seen. Nexus Prime was not a planet. It was a station, built in space over millions of years. It was shaped like a great ring, spinning slowly around a bright blue star. The ring was so big that Earth could fit inside it 100 times. Lights covered every surface, billions of them, making the station glow like a second sun. Ships moved around the station in endless streams. Some were huge, bigger than cities. Some were small and fast. They came in every shape and color that Lila could imagine, and many shapes she could not. That is amazing, Danny whispered. Yes, Lila agreed. That is where we are going. Captain, I am picking up a signal, Danny said. They are asking us to identify ourselves. Lila pressed the communication button on her chair. This is Captain Lila Morgan of the United Earth vessel Meridian. We received your emergency beacon and have come to offer assistance. There was a long pause. Then a voice came through the speakers. It was cold and flat, clearly coming through some kind of translation machine. Human vessel, you are not cleared for this sector. Turn around and leave immediately. Lila kept her voice calm. With respect, you sent a distress signal. We are honor-bound to respond. Another pause. This one was even longer. Very well. You may dock at port 712. Do not touch anything. Do not speak to anyone unless spoken to. You will be escorted at all times. Understood, Lila said. Thank you for your welcome. The communication ended. Danny let out a breath. That was not a very warm welcome. They do not know us yet, Lila said. We will have to show them who we are. She guided the Meridian toward the station. As they got closer, the size of the place became even more impressive. The docking port alone was bigger than most buildings on Earth. Kevin, Lila said again. Last chance. You might want to look at this. Kevin finally glanced up from his tablet. He looked out the window at Nexus Prime for about 3 seconds. Then he went back to his screen. It is very big, he said. Are there any good puzzles inside? I do not know, Lila said. But I think we are about to find out. The Meridian entered the docking bay and sat down gently on a platform. Through the window, Lila could see beings of many different species watching them. Some looked curious. Most looked annoyed. Ready? She asked Danny. Danny nodded, though he did not look ready at all. Kevin, you need to come with us. Kevin finally put down his tablet and stood up. He stretched his arms and yawned. Fine, he said. But if there are no good puzzles, I'm going back to the ship. Leela smiled. She had a feeling that Kevin would find exactly what he was looking for. She just did not know how right she was. The doors of the Meridian opened, and Lila stepped out first. The docking bay was huge and clean. The floors were made of some kind of smooth white stone that reflected the lights above. Strange machines moved along the walls, doing work that Lila did not understand. The air smelled like nothing at all, as if it had been cleaned of every tiny bit of dust and dirt. A group of aliens stood waiting for them. Lila recognized Velthrix from the reports she had read about the Velkari. He was tall, much taller than any human, with gray skin and those strange stalks growing from his head. Next to him stood Murdoch, the cat-like counselor who served on the Galactic Council. Her yellow eyes watched the humans with open distrust. There were guards, too. 4 of them, from a species Lila did not recognize. They were big and covered in hard shells, like beetles the size of cars. They held weapons that looked very dangerous. Welcome to Nexus Prime, Velthrix said. His voice came through a small device on his chest that translated his words. I am Archon Velthrix. Thank you for meeting us, Lila said. She kept her voice calm and friendly. I am Captain Lila Morgan. This is my navigator, Danny Park, and our specialist, Kevin Blake. Murdoch made a sound that might have been a laugh. A crew of 3? Your ship must be very small. It is, Lila admitted. But we get the job done. And what job is that? Murdoch asked. What could humans possibly do that would be useful here? Before Lila could answer, Kevin walked past everyone without saying a word. He had noticed something in the distance and was moving toward it like a dog following a smell. Hey, one of the guards said. You cannot go there. Kevin did not seem to hear. He kept walking. Lila felt her face get warm with embarrassment. I apologize. Kevin is not very good with social situations. Kevin, come back here. Kevin stopped, but not because of Lila. He had reached a large window that looked into another room. Through the window, Lila could see floating screens of light, covered with numbers and symbols. What is that? Kevin asked. His voice was different now. It had energy in it, something like excitement. Velthrix walked over to stand beside the human. He looked down at Kevin with curiosity. That is the calculation chamber, Velthrix said. It is where we work on advanced mathematical problems. Can I go in? Murdoch made another laughing sound. Absolutely not. That chamber contains the most sensitive research in the galaxy. We do not allow primitive species to enter. Kevin did not react to the insult. He just kept staring through the window. his eyes moving across the floating numbers. "Those equations are beautiful," he said quietly. "I have never seen anything like them." Velthrix tilted his head. His stalks moved in a way that Lila had not seen before. He seemed interested. "You understand what you were looking at?" Velthrix asked. "Not all of it," Kevin admitted. "But I can see the patterns. The way the numbers flow into each other. It is like music." For a long moment, Velthrix said nothing. Then he turned to Murdoch. "Bring them to the chamber," he said. Marahautek stared at him. "You cannot be serious." "I am always serious," Velthrix replied. "I want to see something. This is against all protocol. These creatures have no clearance. They have no qualifications. They have no right to be in that room." "I am the Archon," Velthrix said. "I am making an exception." Murdoch looked like she wanted to argue more, but she held her tongue. Velthrix was the highest scientific authority in the galaxy. His word was law in matters of research. The guards led the humans through long hallways and past many doors. Beings of all kinds stopped to stare at them. Lila heard whispers in languages she did not understand. She could guess what they were saying. Who were these strange creatures? Why are they here? What could they possibly want? Finally, they reached the calculation chamber. The room was even bigger than it had looked through the window. The ceiling was so high that Lila could barely see it. Floating in the air were hundreds of screens, each one showing different information. In the center of it all was a massive display, bigger than a house, showing a single equation, the Cascade equation. Kevin walked straight toward it. "This is the problem you cannot solve," he said. It was not a question. Velthrix nodded. "Yes, the Cascade equation. If we could solve it, we would be able to send messages instantly across any distance. But after 300 years of trying, I have declared it impossible." Kevin stopped in front of the main display. He stared at the equation for a long time. His eyes moved slowly from left to right, then back again. "Why do you think it is impossible?" he asked. Marahautek answered before Velthrix could. "Because the greatest minds in the galaxy have tried and failed. The Valkyrie alone have dedicated thousands of geniuses to this problem. If they cannot solve it, no one can." "That is an assumption," Kevin said. "Excuse me? You assume that because smart people could not solve it, no one can. But maybe you are not using the right kind of smart." Murdoch's fur stood up on her neck. "How dare you? The Valkyrie are the most intelligent species in existence. Their methods have been proven over 10,000 years." "Proven methods only work on proven problems," Kevin said. He was still staring at the equation. "What if this is a new kind of problem?" The room became very quiet. Velthrix moved closer to Kevin. His stalks were now pointing straight at the human, sensing him in ways that no one else could understand. "What do you mean?" Velthrix asked. "I mean that you are treating this like a math problem," Kevin said. "You are using logic. You are using computation. You are trying to find an answer that fits the rules. That is how mathematics works," Velthrix said. "Maybe. Or maybe mathematics is bigger than your rules." Kevin finally turned away from the display. He looked at Velthrix with calm, clear eyes. "Can I try?" he asked. Marahautek made a choking sound. "This is madness. We have wasted 300 years on this equation. You think a human with no training and no credentials can succeed where everyone else has failed?" "I think he can try," Velthrix said quietly. Everyone stared at him. "Archon, you cannot be serious," Murdoch said again. "I have already declared the equation unsolvable," Velthrix said. "Our best efforts have failed. Our most advanced methods have failed. What do we have to lose by letting this human try something different?" He turned to Kevin. "What do you need?" Kevin thought for a moment. "Paper," he said. A lot of paper. And something to write with. That is all? That is all. Velthrix gave orders to his aides. Within minutes, Kevin had a table covered with paper and a cup full of writing tools. He sat down, picked up a pen, and began to write. Lila and Danny stood to the side, watching. They did not understand what was happening, but they could feel that something important was about to begin. What is he doing? Danny whispered. I do not know, Lila said, but I think we should stay out of his way. Night fell on Nexus Prime, though night had no real meaning in space. The station dimmed its lights to match the cycles of the species that lived there. Kevin kept writing. The council members left one by one. Bored or annoyed or simply tired. Kevin kept writing. Lila and Danny were taken to guest quarters to sleep. Kevin kept writing. Only Velthrix remained, watching the human fill page after page with strange symbols and stranger ideas. And somewhere in the back of his ancient mind, the Archon began to feel something he had not felt in a very long time. Hope. The night was long. Velthrix did not sleep. The Valkyrie did not need as much rest as other species. They could stay awake for weeks if they needed to. But even if he had been tired, he would not have left the calculation chamber. He could not look away from what the human was doing. Kevin worked without stopping. He filled one page with numbers and symbols, then moved to the next. When the first stack of paper ran out, aides brought more. The empty pages piled up on one side of the table. The full pages piled up on the other. At first, Velthrix could not understand what Kevin was writing. The symbols looked like no math that the Archon had ever seen. They were loose and flowing, almost like art. There was no clear system to them. But slowly, as the hours passed, Velthrix began to see something. The human was not solving the equation the way a Valkyrie would solve it. He was not breaking it into smaller pieces. He was not testing different values. He was not using any of the standard methods. Instead, Kevin was drawing pictures. Not pictures in the normal sense. They were diagrams, maps of how the numbers connected to each other. Kevin was looking at the equation as a whole, not as a collection of parts. What are you doing? Velthrix asked. It was the first time either of them had spoken in hours. Kevin did not look up from his work. I am listening to it. Listening? The equation does not make sound. Everything makes sound, Kevin said. You just have to know how to hear it. Velthrix did not understand, but he watched more closely. Around the middle of the night, something changed. Kevin stopped writing suddenly. He stared at the page in front of him for a long time. Then he crumpled it up and threw it away. Wrong path, he said to himself. Try again. He started over on a fresh page. This time, his writing was different, faster, more certain. Velthrix felt his stalks rise with interest. The hours kept passing. The station outside the chamber went through its daily routines. Ships came and went. Beings ate and slept and worked. The galaxy kept spinning, not knowing that something important was happening in this room. When morning came, the other council members returned. Murdoch looked at the human with disgust. He is still here. Has he slept at all? No, Velthrix said. He has been working all night. Working on what? Making a mess? Murdoch looked at the piles of paper all over the table and floor. This is foolishness. We have wasted enough time on this creature. Wait, Velthrix said. Kevin had stopped writing again. But this time, he did not throw away the paper. Instead, he was staring at it with wide eyes. His hands were shaking. I see it, Kevin whispered. I finally see it. See what? Murdoch demanded. Kevin stood up so fast that his chair fell over. He grabbed the last page he had written and held it up to the main display, comparing it to the cascade equation. You have been trying to send the message, Kevin said. His voice was excited now, almost wild. All this time, Everyone has been trying to push the information from one place to another. Faster and faster, trying to beat the speed of light. That is the goal, yes, BreHFY said. But you cannot beat the speed of light. Not that way. The universe will not let you. We know this, BreHFY said. That is why the equation is impossible. Kevin shook his head. No, the equation is not about sending messages. It never was. He walked to the main display and pointed at different parts of the equation as he spoke. Look at this part here. And this part here. These do not describe movement. They describe connection. The equation is not asking how to move information. It is asking how to recognize information that is already there. BreHFY moved closer. His 16 stalks were all focused on the human now. Explain, he said. Kevin took a deep breath. When he spoke again, his voice was calmer. Think about 2 points in space, he said. Point A and point B, they're very far apart. You want to send a message from A to B. Yes, but what if the message is already at B? What if it has always been at B? You do not need to send anything. You just need to help B see what was already there. BreHFY hissed. That is nonsense. Information cannot exist in 2 places at once. Why not? Because that is not how the universe works. How do you know? The question hung in the air. BreHFY opened her mouth to answer, then closed it again. Kevin turned back to the main display. Your equation describes a pattern in the basic structure of space. You thought the pattern was about movement. But it is not. It is about memory. Memory? BreHFY asked. The universe remembers everything, Kevin said. Every event that happens anywhere leaves a mark on the fabric of space. The marks are everywhere, all the time, in all places at once. He held up his final page of calculations. The cascade equation is not asking how to send messages faster than light. It is asking how to read the messages that the universe has already written. The information is not traveling. It was always there. You just did not know how to see it. The chamber was completely silent. Then BreHFY reached out with one of his long gray arms and took the paper from Kevin's hand. He read it slowly, his stalks moving as his mind processed what he saw. His stalks went stiff. This is correct, he said. His voice was barely a whisper. BreHFY stared at him. What? The human is correct. BreHFY looked at the paper again, as if he could not believe what he was seeing. We were solving the wrong problem. For 300 years, we were trying to move information when we should have been trying to reveal information. He turned to the other council members. They were all staring at him with shock on their many different faces. The cascade equation can be solved, BreHFY said. And this human has shown us how. For a moment, no one moved. No one spoke. Then Kevin yawned and stretched his arms. That was a good puzzle, he said. Is there anywhere I can get some food? I have not eaten since yesterday. The silence broke like a wave hitting rocks. Everyone started talking at once. Council members shouted questions. Aides ran to check Kevin's calculations. BreHFY stood frozen, her mouth hanging open. Only BreHFY remained calm. He walked over to Kevin and looked down at the strange little human who had just changed everything. You solved in one night what we could not solve in 3 centuries, BreHFY said. How? Kevin shrugged. I just looked at it differently. You were all trying to force the answer. I waited for the answer to show itself. That is either very wise or very simple. Maybe it is both, Kevin said. Can I really get some food now? I am very hungry. BreHFY made a sound that his translation device turned into laughter. Yes, he said. You can have whatever food you want. You have earned it. As Kevin was led away to find breakfast, the calculation chamber buzzed with activity. Scientists from a dozen species were already working to test Kevin's solution. Messages were being sent to every corner of the galaxy. The impossible had just become possible. And it had. happened before breakfast. The news spread faster than anyone expected. Within hours, every major news network in the galaxy was telling the same story. The cascade equation had been solved. Instant communication across any distance was now possible. The dream of 1,000 civilizations had finally come true. But that was not the part of the story that made people pay attention. It was who had solved it. A human. A young human. A human who had been a community college math teacher 6 months ago, on every station and planet and ship in known space. Beings were asking the same questions. Who were these humans? Where did they come from? How had one of their kind done what the greatest minds in the galaxy could not? Kevin did not know any of this. He was sitting in the dining hall of Nexus Prime, eating his third plate of something that tasted like pancakes, but was bright purple. "These are really good," he said to Lila, who sat across from him. "What are they called?" "I have no idea," Lila said. "I think they are made from some kind of space grain." Danny sat next to her, looking at his communication device. His face was pale. "We are on every news channel," he said. "Every single one. They are calling Kevin the savior of the galaxy." Kevin looked up from his food. "What? Why?" "Because you solved the cascade equation, Kevin. You did something no one else could do." Kevin frowned. "It was just a puzzle." "I like puzzles." Leila smiled. She had always known there was something special about Kevin, but she had never guessed it was this. The doors to the dining hall opened, and Velthrix walked in. Behind him were several council members, including Murdoch. The cat-like alien looked very different now. The anger and pride were gone from her face. She looked almost humble. "Kevin Blake," Velthrix said. "May we speak with you?" Kevin stuffed one more bite of purple pancake into his mouth and nodded. Velthrix sat down at their table. The other council members gathered around. "We owe you an apology," Velthrix said. "When you arrived, we did not think you could help us. We thought humans were too young, too simple, too primitive to offer anything of value." "That is okay," Kevin said. "I did not think I could help either. And yet you did. In one night, you found an answer that escaped us for 300 years. Velthrix paused. "We have been trying to understand how this is possible. And we have a theory." Velthrix's stalks moved in a way that Kevin had learned meant he was thinking hard. "Our minds are very powerful. We can process information faster than any computer. We can hold millions of facts in our memory at once. We can think about problems from every angle." "That sounds useful," Kevin said. "It is. But it is also a weakness." Velthrix looked at the human with something like wonder in his alien eyes. "Because we are so good at thinking in certain ways, we cannot think in other ways. Our minds follow paths that have always worked. We cannot leave those paths." "You mean you were stuck in your habits?" Lila said. "Yes, exactly. We have been solving problems the same way for 10,000 years. It works most of the time. But some problems need a different approach. A new path." Murdoch spoke up. Her voice was quiet, without the sharpness it had held before. "Humans are new to the galaxy," she said. "Your minds have not been trained in our methods. You do not know how things are supposed to be done. So you try things that we would never think to try." "Is that a good thing?" Danny asked. "Today it is," Murdoch said. "Today, it changed everything." Velthrix nodded. "We used to think that intelligence was about how much you could think. Now we understand that it is also about how differently you can think. Humans may not be the smartest species in the galaxy, but you are perhaps the most creative." Kevin thought about this for a moment. Then he shrugged. "I just look at things and see patterns," he said. "I do not know why I see them. I just do. And that is exactly why you are valuable," Velthrix said. The Galactic Council has asked me to offer you a position. Kevin blinked. A position? We have many problems that have gone unsolved for centuries. Problems that our best minds have given up on. We would like you to look at them, to see if you can find patterns that we have missed. You want me to solve puzzles? Many puzzles. The hardest puzzles in the galaxy. For the first time since Lila had known him, Kevin's face showed real emotion. His eyes lit up like stars. I would like that very much, he said. Velfrix made the sound that meant he was pleased. Then it is settled. You will work here at Nexus Prime, with access to every resource we have. What about Lila and Danny? Kevin asked. They are my crew. Velfrix turned to look at the other two humans. Your species has proven itself today. You are no longer outsiders. You are partners. If your crew wishes to stay with you, they are welcome. Lila looked at Danny. Danny looked back at her. They both smiled. We are not going anywhere, Lila said. The meeting ended soon after. As the council members left, Velfrix stopped at the door and looked back at Kevin one more time. The galaxy's smartest mind gave up solving the Cascade equation, he said. You finished it before breakfast. I will never forget that. Neither will I, Kevin said. These purple pancakes are the best thing I've ever eaten. Velfrix laughed again and walked away. Later that day, the first test of the new communication system was performed. A message was sent from Nexus Prime to a station at the far edge of the galaxy, a distance of 50,000 light years. The message arrived instantly. Not in a year. Not in a day. Not even in a second. Instantly. The galaxy erupted in celebration. For the first time in history, every civilization could speak to every other civilization without waiting. Wars could be prevented. Help could be sent in emergencies. Knowledge could be shared freely, all because a young human had looked at an old problem in a new way. 3 months later, Kevin had solved 2 more impossible equations. Scientists from across the galaxy came to watch him work. They tried to understand his methods. Most of them failed. Kevin could not explain how he saw what he saw. It was just how his brain worked, but the results spoke for themselves. Lila was promoted to ambassador, the first human to hold such a high position in galactic politics. Danny became the head of the new Human Affairs Office, helping more humans find their place among the stars, and Kevin just kept solving puzzles. He was happy, truly happy. He had found a place where his strange way of thinking was not just accepted, but celebrated. He had found a purpose. One evening, he sat alone in the calculation chamber, looking at a new equation that had been bothering him for days. It was a problem about time, about whether the past and future were truly different or just parts of the same thing. Hard problem. The hardest he had faced yet, but Kevin was not worried. He had learned something important on that first night at Nexus Prime. He had learned that the hardest problems were not really hard at all. They just needed someone willing to look at them differently. He picked up his pen and started to write. Outside the chamber, the galaxy spun on. Stars were born and died. Ships flew between worlds. Beings of 1,000 species lived their lives, and on a small station at the center of it all, a human who used to teach basic math aboard college students was quietly changing everything. Some things never change, and some things change more than anyone could ever expect. The end.